That's really cool. Thank you, Zoom, for notifying us of that. So React's a method of using JavaScript to build user interfaces for the web and also mobile. There was React Native just before me. So how we do this normally, you used to do this through classes, but it's now done through functions. You create a class, a function. You can run some JavaScript and then you return JSX. This is JSX here. It's similar to HTML, just in JavaScript. There are a few little intricate details that are a bit different, but those you'll kind of see as we go along. But the fun part about JSX is you can insert your JavaScript into your JSX. So this will render "Hello Sam" as a heading.
Go fast copy करके डाल दे तो इसका cool down ना आया ये you are on cool down मन्ना बताते
sorry, if you could put your question in the chat. I can't exactly understand from your microphone. So Next.js is, in my opinion, the best way to build anything for React. It's kind of like an all-in-one React framework. And what I mean in that way is that it strips away a lot of the unnecessary boilerplate, and it just makes React a lot easier to use and a lot more powerful at the same time.
All right, guys, please make sure you stay muted when you're not asking a question. Thank you.
Thanks. So what are some key features of Next.js? And I want to start off with rendering options because we'll be doing this a bit. So Next.js gives you 3 rendering options. You've got static site generation, which is basically you give it some code, you tell the server, build this, and they will generate it, and they will just generate it as HTML and JSON. And that's the most basic method of rendering. And then you've got server-side rendering. And server-side rendering, you give the server the code, but then every time the user requests it, the server will render it themselves and then send that HTML and JSON to the user or the client. And that makes sure that all data is up to date, but it can be a bit slow in certain cases. Now, incremental static regeneration is kind of a combination of the two. So you start off by generating static pages, but then you update them on the server. So they're updated and refreshed. And then there's file-based routing. So file-based routing basically means, this may sound like logical, but some other React, like Create React app, it's not exactly like this. It's a bit more complicated. So your index.js file will be your index file there. Your contact.js will go to /contact, about-story. I think that's fairly logical. It's kind of like how HTML would normally work. And then you've got dynamic routing. Now, dynamic routing is really interesting because basically dynamic routing allows you to make a page for example, every planet. It will be the exact same page, but it will be for every planet. And we'll use that. And if a new planet is found, then it will just add into a new page without having to rebuild the site. You've got API routes. So here's an example of an API route that's very basic, but you can just run some JavaScript code in an API and just send it like that. We won't be really using that there. And then there are all sorts of other awesome features. So you've got image optimization, which speeds up your site and reduces the size of images. Code splitting, which it all does in the background. You don't have to worry about that, but that just makes your site a lot faster. Typescript support, if you like using TypeScript. Fast refresh, which basically means when you're coding, the page will refresh, but maintain its state. So that just makes it a lot easier to program. You've got CSS support, environmental variables, polyfills with WebJS APIs. That just basically means you can use a lot of the stuff that's like in normal JavaScript, but not in Node.js. That's just the JavaScript thing, but in the background, that is really nice. And then you got internationalization, which basically means you can have a thing for loads of things. So does anyone have any questions at this moment? I don't want to go too fast. Okay, I guess no one has any questions at the moment. That's all right. So what can you use Next.js for? So you can build landing pages with it. Here are a couple of examples. Yeah, you can build e-commerce stores. Here and a few other examples. You can build web apps, and you can build blogs and news sites. So you can do all sorts of things. Okay, so at this moment, I think we're going to start the programming session. So I'm going to stop the screen share and I'm going to screen share some more. Okay, I want to screen share this one and this one. Okay. Can everyone see these two pages? We should have internal server error on the right, and some notes here. Awesome, that's great. So here's what we're going to be building today. Here's what we're going to be building today. It's basically just a little website that shows you the photos from NASA's astronomy picture of the day, the old site, and you can just get these. These are all photos of space, and we're going to be building this. Awesome. So how we want to get started is I'm going to send a like a command in the chat. If you don't have Node.js installed, I recommend installing it. I'll send a link to install that as well. But you're going to need that for this project. So here's the command to run. That will just set you up with the boilerplate. And let me find the Node.js. And there's the, if you need to download Node.js. So I'm going to run the command on my computer. You can also run it with yarn if you'd like, but I think everyone's going to be using npm, so I'll just stick with that. So when it prompts you for a name, just write in that NASA pictures or something. That doesn't really matter. Okay, so you'll see that it's just bringing all the files in and it's installing everything for us that we'll need to use there. Is anyone facing any difficulties running these commands? Anything? Awesome. Okay. So how do you open terminal in VS Code? Great question. So you can open it by hitting terminal up here and then clicking new terminal. And if you want to open a folder, you click open and then it will give you a new folder button. I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's a new folder button and you can create a new folder. You shouldn't have to create a new folder for the terminal, no. All right, so whilst it's installing for everyone, I'm just going to run everyone through how this boilerplate is set up. In Next.js, we're importing the main component. That's something I wrote that will make this workshop a lot easier. Then we've got our title here, the copyright owner, the URL of the image, the date, and if it's today's image. It's actually not. I wrote this little boilerplate a while ago. But in our mains component, we then just, these are some helper functions we'll use a little bit later. We then just render a little site that shows that. And this just handles, sometimes there's YouTube photos, so this just handles that for us. Yeah, and in here, we have our styles in here all written out for us. And we're importing them here like that. And then we can refer to them to get the classes here. So has everyone been able to get the boilerplate up and running, or are some people still facing some difficulties? After you run that, we'll get started with running that in a little bit. Okay. What's up? When you put in the npx command, what happens? Do you have Node.js installed? I'll send you the link. At that link, there should be a big button to install it. Yeah, click this button. All right. Okay, we're using VS Code to write code, but we still have to have npm installed because VS Code is simply just a text editor. npm is still going to run our code. That makes sense. Yeah. Can we maybe mute our mic, please? Thank you. Yeah. All right. So for those who are just get started and you can watch for this. So we want to get started by creating a .env file. This is going to store our environmental variables. So we can do that like this. So what this does is this is just where you have some secrets they want to hide. This key is not at all secret. It's just to fetch information from Nexus thing. So I'm happy to share it. I'm going to share it in the chat. That's going to be our API key we're using for Nexus thing. But we want to put it in our environmental variables here. And if you run npm.dev, you're going to have to restart that. So you can click Control-C and then run the command again. You're going to have to restart that because of how the environmental variables are loaded. It needs a restart. Okay. We can give everyone a few moments to do that. And then we will get into the next part. All right, so then we want to head into index.js. And what we're going to do here is we're going to actually start fetching our data. So right now, our data is hard coded in. We don't want that. We want our data to be fetched for ourselves. So we're going to run export async function. Then we're going to type get static props. Get static props is a special Next.js. So what get static props does is it is a function that is ran before we render our main application function on the server to get some data that we'll then pass to our application function in this area here. So we're then going to want to write let data. This is just creating a variable equals await fetch. So as I mentioned earlier, fetch is actually built into here. So it's really easy. And then we're going to want to type this long URL in, and I'll send this URL in the chat because it's a bit long. Slash planet. Okay, so we're going to want to make this a template string so we can add our API key in. And we can write process. It's got wrong. Dot a dot key. All right. So I'm going to send that into the chat. Hope I didn't make a spelling mistake. But that's the string you want to put in there, and then you want to go then equals r.json. So what that does is that takes the result and then puts it into JSON for us. Yep. Okay. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go return. And this is where we're going to return the data that we fetched. For this one, we actually don't have to do any manipulation. Data, we just return data, validate. And now what does revalidate do, you might wonder? Well, revalidate is a very special little thing that basically tells the server every 30 seconds, you can re-render this page to get it updated. So revalidate is really helpful. So then we head up into app and we can write data like that. So what that tells us is that we'll then be able to get the data from here up into here and here. And then we can actually delete all of this stuff. And we can just do data. All right. And then if I refresh, not there, but in my index.js, hopefully this works. And we should get a nice, okay. Looks like I spelled something wrong. So it's api.nasa.gov. Sorry about that. I'll send an updated link in the chat for us all. Okay. So there, and look, now we have a new page, a new thing rendered. So I'd now like to introduce you to another feature. So this next button, but it's today. So we can't go to the next thing if it's today. So what we're going to do is something called conditional rendering in React. Just head up here and just going to grab. I'm going to wrap this in here. So this is going to be, and from memory, it was like that. So now we head over here. Hopefully it will disappear. Okay, it doesn't want to disappear. And we'll just do it like this. Okay, and now it should disappear. All right, still doesn't want to disappear. Thank you, React, for being so nice. Weird. All right, well, we will get back to that in a bit. Let's keep on going. So now that we've got our today page rendered, we might want to render actually yesterday's. So that's where we go and we create a new page here, and we can just write it as data, or I think it's date.js. So date.js here, and we can just bring in what our work from our previous page into here. And then we're going to write some things here. All right. So has everyone made their date.js page? Let's give everyone some time. All right, so let's keep going. So we're first going to want to bring in a little function that's going to help us out. I'm going to send this function in the chat. I've got it here. This function's just JavaScript, but I'm going to send it here so we don't have to all write it ourselves because it's a bit long. And what we want to do is we want to program something so that this will give us 180 days of things. So how do we tell Next.js all the things that we want to do? All the pages we want to render? Well, we use something called get static paths. So we go export async function, get static paths. Now this runs similar to how our get static props function ran. So, all right. So I'm going to start off by saying, let's get the current date. So to get the current date, we can go the current date, and we can actually just grab what we've got down here. Now, I'll show you why we want to do this in a bit. And then date. Okay, so we want to do this because NASA sometimes take a while to get their dates worked out. So we just want to get the current date that NASA is at, the current date they're working on. And that will make our whole times thing much easier. Then we're going to want to, now we know the current date, we're just going to write a return function. Now this function is going to be a little bit complicated, so bear with me. So we want to do paths. We want to make paths. So these are all the, I keep on writing it like that. So very helpful. These are all the paths that we'll generate for our user. So we'll write, and then array 180, and then dot keys. Now this just creates 180 elements for us. Then we're going to go dot map. So map just will it will mean that it will help us change every single element. Then in here we want to write params. And now here we've named the file date, right? So what we want to do is we want to set a date parameter that will be set. So get date X, and then we want to have, this is the current date. That should be date. And then this is the number. So what this get date X is, it just gets us X amount of days behind that date. And then here we want to write fallback true. And that means that if the date doesn't fall in between this thing, we'll still try and render it. That way people can go all the way back. That makes sense. All right. So now that we know what the date is, we now want to write code so that we're getting this date's image, not any other dates. But before we do that, let's check in with our app and let's make sure that what we wrote is actually working. So I'm going to go back previous, and yeah, it looks like it's generated all these routes. Well, no, it hasn't. So let's choose. How do we do this? I'm going to console log this, and I'm going to choose one of the routes, and I'll show you. Just bear with me for a second. Okay. Thank you. Just ignore that. Oh, well, that wasn't very helpful. Sorry about this. Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna move on. Okay. So now we want to update our get static props to do this well. So okay. We're going to do params. Actually, I just want to show something. So I'm just going to show some. this is what the API response looks like, by the way. Oh, I did provide an API key. Not beautiful. Sorry about this, but it's taking. All right, still don't like me. Okay, so this is what the API response looks like, and these are what our dates. So visit one of these pages. Okay, it's giving us an error. Cannot read the place event. I think that's all right. We're still working on that part. But yeah, that's generated the right page for us. Okay. Now we want to fetch our data. Let's go. So we want to wrap this in a try catch. This is because we've added fallback, so it might fail. So by wrapping it in a try catch, we can catch it when it fails. So I'll just set up that. Return props not found. Sure. Okay. And we will handle that situation in a little bit. Okay, so now we want to get the data, and what we can do is we want to add something here, and date equals, and then params dot date. And now, when we load this up, give us the days, but if we go back one, it should give us yesterday's. Yeah, awesome. Okay. And now we want to get the current date. So we just can quickly do that, because what we want to do here is we're going to tell the component if it is today. So today, current date equals params dot date, and then just true, false. Okay, awesome. And now we want to come up here. We want to come up here and write some stuff here. So, and not found. So if it is not found, then we will give them an error, and we can just import Next.js's errors from next error. By the way, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shout anything out. Yeah. So if not found, we just want to render an error. Return error. Obviously, our favorite status code equals. Awesome. Okay. And then if now you want to handle when we have fallback situations, so we can use router for that. And this is just a little quirk of Next.js that we have to work around. So we'll just quickly do that. Router equals use. Okay. And if router dot is fallback, we'll just return a loading page. Return. All right. So I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to work on this. And then the last thing we want to handle is we want to handle the situation where it's today. So we just want to send them to the actual main page if it's today. So we can do that. And this is just making sure this runs on the client, because we don't want to run this on. So that's why we have that. So router dot replace. So that will just make sure the route they're at is, yeah. So if we go to 26, should theoretically take us. Hey, didn't do that. Oh yeah, it did. See, we're now no longer at dash 26. See, that was really good. Okay, awesome. Okay, so and the last thing we're going to do is update this speed today, and that will just mean that this will show its real date. Yeah, so there's the actual date. Awesome. So now what we want to do is we want to set up routing so that it works actually nicely. So we're going to head into our main component here that we've been using. And we are going to, okay, so that was, so here in the is today, make sure it's actually a negative. So that will now show that. And then but if we go to today, it will oh, yeah, sorry, we haven't done routing. We actually have to do routing now. So that's awesome. So you see these refs are just like blank. Let's actually change that. So what we want to do is we want to write a template string, and then we've got these little helper functions up here that we can use. So we want to write get yesterday, and then we just provide the date. And then we can append that to prepend that to there. And then that will just get us yesterday. So theoretically, this should now take us to 0624. Yep, so you can see it's done that. Yeah, and there we go. Awesome. And we can do the exact same thing for tomorrow here, but we just want to write update yesterday. Oops, I have not closed that template to say get tomorrow. Okay, so we now have the basic workings of this program, and now we want to do a little bit more fancy things. So I want to introduce some new fancy features here. So we can write, I want to first make these links less standard and work nicer. So next link does that for us. What that does is that means that the links will just be a lot faster when we deploy into production. So we can just replace all our A's here with links and do that. So to do that, you just want to import next link at the top and do that, like up here. Yeah. And another thing you'll see is that we've got these boring, ugly titles. Now they're no fun at all. So what we want to do, oh, we've got a question. Awesome. I'm going to take a break and answer the question. So it's a rather small one. The front end is, I wonder if you section. So in my opinion, I would use Next.js and I would use the API routes, which we haven't used in this one. But I would prefer, if I was doing it, I would use Next.js. Plus, it's much easier to deploy and it's just a nicer experience. So I'd recommend Next.js. If you'd like, you can always email me and I can give more specific advice. I'll drop my email in the chat. And I can like help with that exactly. But I recommend Next.js, just going off what you've said. Awesome. So now we want to have nicer meta tags than these ugly titles that we have here. So we're going to head up to index.js, import meta, from, oh, sorry, import head from next head. And what that does is that it just allows us to edit what we put in the head of the document. So if you have a browser, as you know, you've got this stuff, this head stuff here. Importing next head just allows us to edit that. So head, all right. So what do we want to put in here? So we obviously want to put the title in. So let's have the title be our, let's have the title be today's astronomy. Picture of the day. Okay, that's just got our title. Now, we also want to have an image, so we can do meta property equals and then OG image. What OG image is that's just for open graph, and then content equals data.graph. All right, there we go. And that will render if we go to the home page. Yeah, so now we've got nicer text. Yeah. All right. And we're going to want to do a similar thing in our date.js file. So let's head up there. And in here, let's write, let's make it data.date. Astronomy picture. Now we'll just set it to be that one. Okay. And the last little thing I want to go over is I want to run us through how we can make these images optimized, because at the moment they aren't really optimized. So what we're going to do is we want to use Next.js's image optimization tool. So we can go to next config.js. And then module exports. So this is just our configuration thing. And then we're just going to send this configuration in the form of JSON. So images, and then we need to tell them the domains that we find acceptable. So domains, and we're just going to give NASA's domain, and we're also going to give YouTube because some of the images come from YouTube for NASA. And image.youtube.
हाँ नहीं हाँ.
Okay. And as you can see, it's getting very angry at us, so we have to restart the dev server. And there we go. And then you want to go into our main component, and we want to import the Next.js image component. Next image from Next. There we go. And then we have our image component down here. We want to update that to be the image. Then we're going to do update it so that its layout is fill. And what that means is that it will just fill the screen. There we go. We'll make this a priority because we want this to be loaded so it looks good. And then we want the quality to be 100% because this is an image viewing website anyway at its core. And there we go. We've got optimized images. That's how easy it is with Next.js. So at this moment, we've got a whole website and everything. So what we can actually do is we can actually deploy this to Vercel. So Vercel is a really nice platform for deploying things to Next.js. So I'm going to head up into my Vercel. Let me. And we're going to want to just deploy this. So I don't actually have this in a Git repo, but I'm just going to deploy if you had it in a Git repo, this is how you do it. I'd go to Sampoda. This is my Git repo. I'd import it. I would want to choose the root directory. You probably don't have this, but let's just say I'm going to deploy the final product. And then I want to set an environmental variable, which we have over here. And that would be key. And then I just want to run deploy. Hopefully this works. I have to click first try. Intro.js. Okay. Let's see how this goes. You can see our logs here. Okay. Well, that's how you would deploy it to Next.js to Versa. Anyway, enough. I kind of want to stop talking. My mouth is beginning to hurt. So I want to ask and open the floor to any questions. If anyone has any questions about Next.js or anything. Do you have any questions? All right, I'm going to assume we don't. My email is in the chat. If anyone wants that email, feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to help. I'm also on Discord. I'm going to send a message on the web dev. I said hi. So if anyone wants to DM me on Discord, I'm open to DMs, I guess. Yeah, so I'm always happy to help. And if you enjoy this workshop, I really appreciate if you could start on GitHub. Here it is on GitHub. Yeah, it's on GitHub here. That'd be really cool if you could start it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for everyone for coming. My email is in the chat. I am on Discord, and you can also find my email on GitHub as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sam, for our Next.js workshop, and that'll wrap up our workshops for today. So we'll post all the recordings by tonight, and in about an hour, like 9 p.m., we'll have our Minecraft game night. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you.